My name is Marissa Hale, and I still remember the exact tone of my sister's whisper when she leaned toward my mother that night. It wasn't fear in her voice. It was strategy, calculated and cold. "She'll embarrass me in front of his family. Don't let her come," she said. I stood in the hallway pretending I hadn't heard, but every word carved itself into me. Mom didn't hesitate. She just nodded like I was already a problem she had learned to manage. That was the moment I realized I wasn't being excluded from a wedding. I was being erased. I didn't argue, didn't cry, just walked out knowing silence would cost them more than words ever could. A week later, a magazine cover shoot I thought meant nothing would change everything I believed about power. My sister ignored my existence until her husband's boss walked into their office, holding that same cover. He stopped, looked closer, then asked who I was like I was the missing piece of a story. Then he called her into his office, shut the door, and said my name in a way that made her go completely still, because what he said next changed everything immediately. I didn't find out what happened in that office until later that night when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. My sister's name flashed in a message first, but it wasn't from her. It was from her husband. He wrote only one line. "What did you do, and why is your sister on the cover of Global Ledger magazine?" I froze, because I hadn't told anyone that the magazine shoot even existed outside my agency. But the real shock came when another notification arrived, this time from an unknown office email labeled urgent, executive review. It was attached to my photo, enlarged on a screen, with my sister standing beside it in the meeting room I had never been allowed to enter. Then the man who controlled half the city's media empire looked at my sister and said he remembered me, not as her relative, but as the girl he once approved for a private acquisition project that had been buried years ago after I refused to sign away my rights to my own name and image, and now he wanted to reopen the entire case immediately with her watching in complete silence, terrified and exposed. I didn't sleep that night, replaying the boss's words in my head. My sister finally called me at dawn, but I let it ring out. When she texted instead, her message was short and shaking with panic. "You need to fix this, Marissa. You embarrass me in front of everyone." I almost laughed because she still thought I had power to fix her mistakes. Then another email arrived, this time from the magazine editor asking for verification. Attached was my signed contract, the one I never remembered agreeing to fully. My stomach dropped when I saw my sister's husband had already replied on my behalf. The reply said I was legally under exclusive media representation tied to that image. And the final line made everything worse, because it requested my immediate appearance in court. My sister then sent one last voice note, crying that I had ruined her life on purpose. But what she didn't know was that the contract had already been activated by someone else entirely. And the signature at the bottom wasn't mine, but the boss's. That meant everything I thought I controlled had already been decided long before my sister ever whispered my name out loud. I didn't understand how deep the trap went until my phone rang again with a direct line from the magazine editor asking me to come to their headquarters immediately for a clarification session. I walked in thinking I was going to defend myself, but the moment I entered the glass boardroom, I saw my sister already sitting there beside her husband, both of them looking like they had been waiting for judgment. The editor didn't speak. First, instead, he turned the screen toward me, revealing internal emails that I had never seen, messages authorizing full public control over my image and name. My sister suddenly stood up, insisting I had signed everything willingly, but when the editor played a recording of her own voice agreeing to the submission on my behalf, her face went pale. The room shifted into silence until my sister's husband finally looked at me and asked why his company's legal department was treating me as a protected asset under executive review status, and that was when the editor slid a final document across the table that listed my sister as the one who initiated the entire legal transfer of my identity without my knowledge or consent, and it was all about to. I couldn't process the sentence before the room erupted into overlapping voices. My sister's hands shook as she reached for the document, but the editor pulled it back like it was evidence in a crime. "This is not possible," she whispered, but no one looked convinced anymore. The screen behind us updated again, showing timestamps of her authorization signature appearing on my file weeks before I even knew the contract existed. My chest tightened when I realized this wasn't about the magazine anymore. It was about ownership, and I was suddenly the thing everyone in the room was trying to claim or deny. My sister turned toward me, eyes glassy, insisting she had done it to protect me from something I never agreed was dangerous. But the editor interrupted her and said the final approval didn't come from her account at all. It came from my mother's signature verification system, which meant someone at home had opened the door she thought was locked forever. The room went silent as every head slowly turned toward me, waiting for me to respond, but I could only feel my life splitting into versions I no longer recognized. Then the call changed everything again. The call came through the boardroom speaker, and every eye shifted to the flashing red line on the screen. My mother's name appeared as the caller, and I felt my stomach drop before I even answered. The editor signaled for silence, but I already knew this wasn't a coincidence anymore. I pressed the speaker button, and my mother's voice filled the room with a calm that didn't match the chaos. She said she only signed what my sister told her to sign, believing it was harmless paperwork. But the legal officer interrupted, stating the transfer included full identity and media ownership rights. My sister suddenly shouted that I was lying, but her voice cracked halfway through. That's when the screen updated again, showing my name legally reassigned under a corporate trust. The editor went pale, because that trust was not supposed to be active yet, and according to the system logs, it had been triggered from a secure executive terminal inside my brother-in-law's company. Everyone turned toward him as the realization hit that he had unknowingly activated a transfer that erased my control completely, and my sister finally whispered that none of this was supposed to happen like this ever. The room didn't recover after that. My brother-in-law stood frozen, staring at the screen like it might rewrite itself if he looked long enough. Then his phone vibrated non-stop. Legal alerts, internal security flags, and a corporate freeze notice that wiped color from his face. "This is impossible," he kept repeating, but the editor cut him off, saying the trust structure required a beneficiary confirmation within 24 hours, or it defaulted to full public control. That was when I realized what they had actually done to me. My sister grabbed my arm, nails digging in, suddenly desperate instead of defensive. "Marissa, you have to tell them you didn't approve this," she begged, but I pulled away because for the first time I understood the truth. They had never needed my approval, only my silence. The legal officer slid another document forward, this one showing a pending press release scheduled for midnight. My name, my face, my story, already written without me. And then the editor said something that made the entire room go still. The only person who could stop the release wasn't me, it was the original signer who initiated the override. My sister slowly looked toward my mother's ongoing call and whispered, "Mom, what did you sign?" And the answer came immediately, breaking everything open again, because my mother finally admitted she didn't read the last page at all, and it had been switched just before she signed it, meaning the real mastermind was still hidden in plain sight and watching us unravel right now when the lights suddenly went out completely in the building. The building went dark, and for the first time, I heard my own breathing louder than their lies. In that silence, my phone lit up with a single encrypted message from the editor. It said the trust had been reversed, and the real beneficiary was never my sister or my mother, but me all along, hidden behind legal protection after I refused the original contract rewrite years ago. My sister's voice cracked through the darkness outside the door, but I didn't move when she begged me to fix what she destroyed. My brother-in-law's company was already locked out of the system, their access erased by executive override I never knew I held. Then the editor sent one final line. "You were never the target. You were the firewall." I watched the security feed flicker as my sister collapsed to her knees, realizing every decision she made had been routed through systems designed to expose her. I walked out of the boardroom as emergency lights returned, knowing every lie had already collapsed around them, and for the first time, I didn't feel erased. I felt authored, untouchable, and finally in control of everything they tried to steal from me any longer ever again.